Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Put the children to bed. It's time for Dan and Aldo to bare their souls.
I love the Chicago Bears more than I do masturbating, and that is a lot.
Then, with 3 seconds left, Bob Avellini throws a 30-something yard touchdown pass to Greg Latta, and the Bears win, and I literally shit my pants. I swear to God, I literally did.
Eric Kramer, for me, I love the guy. He's a tragic figure. I mean, he embodies all that is.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well. Not for a guy of his caliber.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
So, Dan, tape is the ultimate tool for scouts and for coaches to evaluate players, to detect plays and so forth. And they spend hours looking at tape, right? Why do they so often get shit wrong?
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan and Aldo.
Too. I had a family drama yesterday. It's behind me now. I'm feeling better and ready to rock and roll with you, bro.
I know we should talk about this at the end of the show, and I don't even know if you were able to watch the clips I sent you, but Euphoria, I'm telling you, the ending, or at least with one of, I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but there's
you're going to spoil some of it.
I really want to spoil one character arc.
Okay.
Because it was so powerful. When it ended, okay. I sat in silence for an hour.
I got to tell you right now, I'm looking at Johnny Santucci off screen, and he's got his index fingers in his ears. He doesn't want to hear anything about this finale that you're going to ruin for some of us.
For one character arc, that's all.
All right. Do I have to play all three of those clips?
No, that was I was just wanting you to see. I was wanting you to see them yourself. Not you can air them if you want. That wasn't the idea. Okay. All of them together are only like 2.5 minutes. I was just trying to make it easier to actually send it to you.
Okay.
As opposed to one big scene, you know.
Yeah.
But it is the same scene. It's just building the tension with it. But no, you don't even have to air. We don't even have to talk about it if that's a thing. Considering that you're a TV lover like me, and it having such an impact, I just thought you'd appreciate that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. How have you been, brother? I know you've been working like some monstrous amount of hours, and I always worry about your sleep and eating well and stuff like that for you. How have you been lately?
It's about to get worse because let me tell you this. One of my bucket list band for me. When in 10th grade, this band came really close to us, and I didn't drive yet. My mom wouldn't take me. I've never seen this band. They're called, well, it's named after the band, the singer Danzig, and Danzig is going to be in Cincinnati on May the 14th. So I'm going to try to get those tickets Thursday morning for Danzig, which will put me in the hole even more if having to work overtime. And it's right before I leave for Florida too. It's like 3 days before, but it feels like once in a lifetime. But all things equal, I appreciate your concern. Somehow I'm going to live and enjoy these live shows this year.
I hope so. I hope so, bro. You do really go at it. And so you've been buying concert tickets like crazy, right?
I have. I've been spending too much fucking money. Someone needs to come in and be a life coach, I think, on my mismanagement of funds for this stuff. But yeah, I've got a big year. Like right now, I've got I don't know if you know these artists. So, but coming up on March 13th, I've got Korn. April 1st, I have Slipknot. I've got that music festival in May, in late May. Hopefully, Danzig in between that. Then I've got Rage Against the Machine in July and 9 Inch Nails in September.
Wow, that is awesome, man. I think I know all those bands except Danzig. So, but I'm sure I will listen to a couple of tunes of theirs before you hopefully get out there.
Danzig is like, especially the early 90s stuff, to me, it feels like had Jim Morrison and the Doors come out 20 years later, that's what it would have sounded like. It's very moody. A lot of like poetry kind of lyrics, those sort of things. But he's got different styles. He veers off. The 2 or 3 albums in the early 90s, like Danzig 3, 4, that era is very Doors-ish.
Mo Bierman says Danzig was pretty cool back in the 90s. So they go back that far.
His heroes are Elvis and Roy Orbison, despite the fact that he's a metal guy. And he actually recorded, and he did it for real, like seriousness, not like a goof. He recorded an Elvis album last year because Elvis is his hero, covering his favorite Elvis songs.
Hey, we got an old friend in the chat room. Brandy is with us.
Brandy, she's seen Danzig back in the day, and she rubs it in my face all the time.
Love you, Brandy. Thanks for being here. The Factor says, how does Dan feel about dealing with Aaron Rodgers for at least a couple of more years? How do you
is that a done deal?
No, I don't think it is, but all signs point to that.
I heard that he was asking for $50 million. $50 million?
Yeah, and he immediately went out and said, that's bullshit. So what it means, he's probably asking for $49 million.
Hey, man, fuck it. Let's go. We got rid of our problem, in my opinion. And fuck it. If he's here, let's beat him. I mean, he's almost 40 now.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's put him in the grave.
Right. I think a lot of his success is due to the fact that he's played in a division with 3 teams that have never fielded good teams consistently. The Bears have had a season or 2 that were good. The Vikings, the same thing. The Lions never. But I just feel it in my bones that the Bears are going to turn this thing around, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be our bitch. And part of the reason I'm feeling that way is the press conferences that were held today at Indianapolis at the Combine with the new general manager, Ryan Poles, and the new head coach, Matt Eberflus. I was impressed with how they presented themselves. There were certain things that they would not reveal, of course, but they handled it in a much more professional and acceptable way than Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy ever did. I was really impressed, and I know you haven't heard any of this audio, but we'll play some in a little while, and then we'll bring in you and Tooch. Well, you're already here, but we'll bring in Tooch to get the thoughts on some of these comments. So we'll do that in a few minutes. But I just wanted to check with you on Dan. You're a huge basketball fan. One of your favorite players of all time is Hakeem Olajuwon. But have you been following basketball much this season?
No, I just don't have time, unfortunately. I've seen some of the trades and things like that, and at least the season's happening. Baseball is just shooting itself in the fucking foot again. With their labor problems. But no, where were you going with the basketball question, though?
Well, I only mention it because Larry Golden, who is co-host of Bulls 101, has just gotten a job with Sports Info Systems Hoops, SIS. They go on Twitter, SIS Hoops, at SIS Hoops, and they're working to become like the new Pro Football Focus of basketball, but without all the controversy. And they've hired Laro, which I am so proud of him. The bar room has had not a lot of success, but some success at helping people start their careers. And Laro did his first podcast here, and his new employers saw the show and said, this is part of the reason we're hiring you, because we really appreciated the show that you were on and the knowledge that you shared. And so he won't be doing Bowls 101 anymore. He'll do his last show this weekend, and then he's going to focus his attention on SIS. And I'm so proud of him and so happy for him. And then the Vikings Age, I think it's Vikings Age blog, they just wrote an article on Jordan Reed, who used to write about the Vikings here at the Bar Room many years ago when we first started, and they're doing a profile on him because he just landed this ESPN scouting job. And so we can put him on the list of people who have worked here in the Bar Room and have gone on to greater and bigger things. So I'm really happy for both of those guys. Outstanding work, gentlemen. Congratulations. And Dan, I think, I'm working on you next. I want you to land a job here in Chicago, working for the Score Sports Radio or ESPN 1000, and maybe have you as a new overnight guy. Wouldn't you love that? Just overnight talking to Chicago sports fans for 4 hours a night?
To quote Clint Eastwood in Magnum Force, a man's got to know his limitations. I don't think I'm qualified to be Mike North in Chicago, the third largest market in America. I don't think I'm that good. It's not false modesty, and it's not a lack of belief in myself. It's just reality, man. Mm-hmm. But how about I say that the Bar Room is helping me? Now, this is a bit of a stretch, but we'll go with it and say that the Bar Room is the reason I'm getting a lot of pussy. How about that?
That trumps the ESPN job and trumps the job at SIS. I mean, come on. I love it. All right. Without further ado, I want to bring in John here earlier than we normally do because it's a shorter show than normally. And besides, I love Johnny Santucci. Johnny, come on in here and say hello to your fans, brother. I'll let you press that button. Come on in as soon as you're ready. There you are. I'll do that. And how are you, brother?
I'm good. How's everyone doing?
We're doing good, man. We're so happy that you're here and you're going to lend your expertise on these comments from the general manager and the head coach.
I'll tell you
have not heard any of this stuff, right?
Dan would be perfect talking with all of his Bears history. He's got in his head. He would be perfect for Chicago radio.
I mean, that's what Les Grobstein did overnights. People would ask him a question about, the Chicago Cubs, and 20 seconds into his response, he was talking about the 69 Cubs.
I love it.
Yeah.
He was great at that, man. And that's one of my great regrets that I never worked harder at getting Dan Aguirre and Les Grobstein together so that they could talk about the history of football together, because that would have been like a test of two geniuses recalling prior football games. That would have been so outstanding. But
hey, from your perspective, was he just a professional cover these things, or was he a real fan too?
Oh, he was a huge, real fan.
Okay, so it wasn't just his job. Like his heart was into it too.
Oh, he loved Chicago sports, loved them passionately. A huge Bears fan. You guys would have gotten along so well, man. It's a shame that didn't happen. PZ wants to know, Dan couldn't talk about his sex life on air. Dan can talk about his sex life on air. Oh, but he's saying if you got that radio gig with terrestrial radio, that your sex life would be verboten on the air. So he's right.
Well, I've got a gig on terrestrial radio, but I've got a pseudonym on the air, so it's different from Aguirre. So
that's right. What is your pseudonym again?
Dan McMahon.
Yeah. So if you're ever
after Jim McMahon,
what areas or what states does that radio signal go out to? So if I'm driving in Baltimore, can I hear your radio station?
No, we stream though, but for us, it's like West Virginia, North Carolina primarily. Maybe some in Ohio, depending where you are, closer to the West Virginia border. Mm-hmm. Our pop station goes a lot farther than the classic rock that I'm on primarily, because our pop station's 100,000 watts.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to give me that streaming information because I want to hear you on one of your shows. And can I interact with you like we do here when we're on StreamYard? Like, can I ask you a question and you'll see it from your streaming station?
Unfortunately, I have to record it because I go to my other gig. I do everything I can to not, reveal that I'm not like if I sneeze or something, I leave that shit in.
Yeah.
Because I want people to think if he wasn't live, he would edit that out.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to make, if an alarm goes off, I try to leave it in. So when people interact with me, I always am like, hey man, I'm sorry I didn't see this yesterday, and I respond to them the next day.
Mark Grody, by the way, took over the Grobber spot at the Score. He does it for 3 days a week, and I think they're looking for somebody to do it on the other 2 days. So
he's appeared on the Barroom Network, if you recall.
He has more than once, 2 or 3 times. He's a great guy, and really very qualified for that 4 or 5 hour talk show. I mean, you're doing it all by yourself. That's one of the hardest things to do in radio. I think, Tooch, have you ever done any radio broadcasting? Because you got the perfect voice for it too.
No, I have not. No, I would love to though.
How many drugs have you done in your life that you have to remember back if you've done any radio broadcasting?
Yeah, I was trying to think back to high school, and we played around with the high school, radio system, but that really doesn't count.
CJ Williams is telling us that Chris Ranji does the other 2 nights when Grody's not doing the late night shift. So thanks CJ, and Chris Ranji is another very talented guy. So we'll get you another job here in Chicago radio, Dan.
It's fine, man. It's good.
All right.
Hey, before you play that, I wanted to get you all's reaction because I think it's a big deal. Every time I ask someone locally, they're like, okay, it's not really like, to me, it's a huge deal. Like Troy Aikman is leaving Fox and going to Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Which is going to create obviously a hole for, they're going to have to cut Greasy and Louis Riddick, you would presume. And now Al Michaels is a free agent, so they could potentially bring him to ESPN, or he's allegedly leaning toward Amazon.
That's what I've heard.
Then they said ESPN is looking to try to get Buck out of his deal as a potential. He's got 1 year left, but he does baseball too. I can't imagine him giving up his gig at Fox.
Yeah, there have been times where a broadcaster has worked for 2 networks. They've been able to finesse that with contracts and all that stuff, but I don't think that's going to happen with Joe Buck. I think this is kind of a different circumstance. But to answer your question, I'm not a big fan of Troy Aikman. Greg Gabriel and I talked about it on a recent show. It appears to me that Aikman has stopped preparing for shows. He's just a cliche. It's not for shows, but for games. It's not like he's offering any insight. Like Greg Gabriel said, that first year where Tony Romo did color, you knew he was looking at tape of the games because he would predict the play before the ball was snapped. And Troy Aikman never does that. He sounds it's just cliche after cliche with Aikman, but he's got a name and he still has a lot of popularity. So,
it's still big to move. I think for him to move to Monday night, it's that happened once back in the day when Don Meredith left for Monday night to NBC, and then obviously he came back to Monday night. You don't get that a lot though, and I guess they're trying to solidify the broadcasters being like a big deal again. And as much as I don't like Aikman either, it's a good signing though. He's been at Fox since 2002. He's called a lot of Super Bowls. I think that's good. But I think he reminds me of Judge Smales from Caddyshack. He's like, Bushwood, he's just snobby as fuck and like stuck up. And you remember how offended like Smales was at Rodney Dangerfield, like throughout the whole movie. I think that's the way like Aikman is toward all the fans.
Mo Bierman says that it sounds like Greg Olsen is going to be the #1 analyst over at Fox, and that would be great. I thought he did a fantastic job.
Except the Bears were like 0-3 when he did our games.
Except for that, it's
he probably won't be doing the Bear games if he's on the #1 team. Let's be honest.
It's Olsen's revenge, because he was traded away. He didn't really want to leave Chicago. He was not happy with that trade.
That was Color's boy.
Yeah, how unbelievable. It's another fucking stupid mistake. All right, let's get to some audio tape. I got a whole bunch of stuff. We'll go through it and decide when to stop when we've heard enough of these guys. But, it's funny that today Joe Biden is giving a State of the Union speech, and that's how Ryan Poles started. He basically offered up a very comprehensive update to what has been going on at Hallis Hall for the past, since he was hired. And so this is about almost 2 minutes in length. Let's listen to Ryan Poles with this Hallis Hall update.
I've been really impressed and spent time with all the coaches. And, everything that Matt and I spoke about before in terms of finding talented teachers that have emotional intelligence, that care about the players, that bring energy, and also a developmental mindset, that's there. And you can tell already we're excited for that. The other piece is in the performance area. We've made a lot of changes there, and we're confident that we're going to be able to take our players and really optimize their ability so they're in shape, they're playing fast, they're playing violent, and they're explosive. And part of that is making sure the body's right. And that group is already getting to work. Some of the guys have been coming in, working out, and it seems like more and more have come through to get ready. So I'm excited about that as well. And then in terms of the front office, we've spent a lot of time meeting. We were behind for about 2 weeks, and we've been able to catch up and go through the free agent process. That took about 8 to 9 days, and then we put we flew our college guys in, and we watched a ton of tape, and we went through that process and kind of got what I call the board pinned down, because we're still gathering information, but at the same time, we want to get some of those players in the right area. And not be too affected on what goes down here, because as we get further and further away from the season, you can make some mistakes by what happens in shorts and the all-star games, and really you forget about the meat of the evaluation, which came from the season and the information our guys were able to gather. So I'm excited. We're heading the right direction. I got a really good group in staff. A lot of you have probably, read up on Ian. He's been a huge part for me, only because getting pulled in so many different directions, that's very new to me. Having him out in front and working with our staff, if I get pulled out of a meeting, he keeps the ball rolling, keeps a list of players that I need to get caught up on, but all systems are always moving.
I am so impressed with this guy. I am so impressed. Tooch, what do you think about Mr. Poles and what he's set up there in terms of what's happening at Hallis Hall? Does he inspire any confidence? I know you're going into this season with not the greatest of confidence, simply because George McCaskey had a hand in hiring these guys. But after what you just heard, do you feel a little better?
I do feel a little bit better. Yeah, what worries me is that it's the same. The thing where there's no one in between George who can evaluate Ryan Poles, which is what this organization is missing. And it probably makes the Bears different than a lot of the organizations in the NFL. Mm-hmm. They probably have a general manager, then above the general manager, a president of football operations, and then ownership. Where ownership doesn't have to, be making football decisions. They're just there to own the team, to, manage the financial aspects of the team. And the football operations president or manager of that, he oversees everything football. Mm-hmm. I don't think Ryan Poles, I don't think anybody would say that Ryan Poles is qualified to be a president of football operations of any organization. Do I like what I hear so far from him as a general manager? Yeah, I do. I like that. I think he's going to manage a good scouting staff, and he's going to make good picks, I think. If he's basing his evaluations on game tape, then, that's one step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Dan, your thoughts? Do you agree with Mo Bierman, who writes in the chat room that he is still in show me mode?
I can see his point as well as Tooch's. I guess for now, I'm going to say, again, I'm just so happy the other two guys are gone. So when I hear him speak, I'm like, okay, he doesn't have to prove anything to me. I'm buying in. I'm investing. I'm saying, okay, I'm all right with him being the general manager and no one above him. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say he's the guy making all the moves right now and George is his advocate and, signing the checks. So, all right, I'm investing in this guy and saying he's the one he's going to make the right decisions. And like you said, when he's talking a minute ago, he certainly is playing the role. Mm-hmm. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. There are a lot of successful or intelligent people over the years that have failed in their positions. So he sounds like at least he is qualified for the position. But I mean, how do we know? We don't. We're just fans. But I think, yeah, so the short answer is I'm impressed.
PZ agrees with Mo right now. Pose is just talk, is just offering talk that we've heard before. Here's why I don't quite agree with that, PZ and Mo. He just seems so relaxed and so confident. And the way he detailed in order what they've been working on, and I've got another soundbite here where he talks about evaluating the scouts. To me, it's so different than Ryan Pace, just so different. And when we get to Matt Eberflus, I think you're going to hear a difference too. Now, what does that mean? Yes, it is talk, but I really value good communicators. Clear communication is so important. At one point, Poles went on to say that he is going to make sure that every player that walks into the building is taught the right way. They are going to learn how that particular player learns the best. Is it visual? Is it audible? Is it giving the player a kick in the ass? Whether it's putting their armor on. They're going to make sure that they're going to reach that player with what the strategy is, schemes, and so forth. The second thing is they are also going to do nutrition the right way. He spoke at length at the value of making sure these guys are eating the right things and for the right positions. So I got another soundbite of him talking about the offensive line and that they're going to ask guys to come in a lot leaner, those big guys up front, because they want them to be really quickly. And nutrition is going to play a big role in that. And then, it just went on. So let me play the soundbite of his evaluation of the scouts that were left behind. All of the scouts were hires from the Ryan Pace era or before. There's still a couple of holdovers from previous regimes. Let's listen to what Ryan Poles said about the scouts.
I was very happy with the group of scouts that we have right now. The meetings were incredible, and before we broke, I told them all how proud I was. Because as a new GM, you come in and you're like, all right, you're evaluating them, you're evaluating the evaluators. And at the end of it, the thing that stood out to me is there's a group of really, really good people that worked really hard this fall to gather the information. Now, my style was a little bit different. Our meeting structure was different where, as I said in the press conference, it was a culture of candor. It's open. We watch tape. We have order in the way that we watch the tape. But after that, everyone can speak their mind. And if I see something different than you, then I bring it up to the room and we work through it. And you can tell me where you saw it different and we'll go find it. So that group effort, I think, was refreshing to everyone. And again, I can't speak more highly of the group that we had in the room. I'm excited, and we'll continue to evaluate. But I was pumped about that.
That's almost like he's complimenting Ryan Pace, but also giving a little jab to Ryan Pace. Almost insinuating that there wasn't an open culture where scouts can say, "Hey, I think you screwed up there. That guy can't tackle," like you said in your scouting report. So that to me is another plus. What do you think, Dan?
I agree with you. It sounds like he's like, look, the scouts are qualified. We have good scouts. It's just that fucker that was making the decisions is a fool.
Yeah, we told them we liked Adam Shaheen, but not a second rounder.
We also had to lie and go along with him when he said we all wanted Mitch.
That's right. That's the other thing, and I've said it a million times. Ryan Pace not telling John Fox that they wanted that they were going to draft Mitch Trubisky. Not telling him was just a huge sign of cowardice, and I think that was part of Ryan Pace's downfall here, is that he was afraid to be confrontational with certain people. And when he fired John Fox, if you remember that press conference, it looked, when he took his seat at the podium there at the panel, it looked like he had been crying for 2 hours. I mean,
you think Fox is kind of like Greg Gabriel? Like if you got him pissed off, like Fox would just be like with his rough voice, like, Ryan, I'll fuck you up. The way like Greg Gabriel's mad at Florio all the time.
That's funny. Yeah, I do. I do think so. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Swanky says, Dan, I'm impressed with Poles. He's tough. He's got swagger. I love swagger, man. All right.
I agree.
Let me go over to Matt Eberflus. An important part, of course, of his job, and he's taking more of that CEO approach to coaching and not, I'm going to be making all the decisions. He talked about the importance of finding the right coaching staff.
This goes back when I first got interviewed in 2018 with the Cleveland Browns. I got interviewed there, and everybody has their staff list, and I think that's an important thing. But the reality of it is that it's hard to get everybody on that list because guys are under contract, guys get promoted where they were. I mean, there's a lot of things moving, a lot of balls in the air. So I really leaned on the coordinators this time, and to Luke and to Alan, and to HT. I leaned on those guys to say, hey, who do you like? Who fits with your system? Okay, and then let's talk about the list that way. Let's start our list that way, and then I'll interview them on the phone, and we'll get them in here and either Zoom or bring them into Chicago, and we'll talk to them. If they fit with our system and our style, then we'll move them on to the next stage, and then that's what we did. We ended up hiring a really good staff.
It's small points, but I love that type of managerial style where, Tooch, if you're going to have an employee work over you and that position is open, why shouldn't you make that decision? Because you're going to be the one working day to day with that person. You're going to be the one managing that person. You're going to be the one who that person is going to generate positive or negative results that are going to impact you in some way. And for Eberflus to do that with his coordinators and allow them to bring in assistant coaches that they wanted to work with, that to me is the right way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I like what I heard there too. This is the first, this is the first time I'm hearing this, but he said a lot of balls in there. I thought he was talking about Euphoria.
I have not watched this season of Euphoria, but John Santucci gave me a good review prior to the show. He goes, yeah, what other show can you see somebody erect cocks? It's like, whoa. What the hell?
It's definitely X-rated.
Well, count me in for cocks.
Yep.
We're going to be talking about Euphoria in a little while, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the right approach. And Eberflus went on to talk about what the coaches have been doing.
What we're doing is going to be very important in the sequence of how we call plays. That's always important on offense or defense. But what's more important is how. And then how do you implement that during the course of the season? Starting in our first phase 1, phase 2, the voluntary mini camp, going all the way through the summer into training camp. How do you implement that and keep your critical eye on that detail of how? And to me, that's really because I've been in the offensive room and I've been in the defensive room these last 3 weeks, and I've also been in the special teams room. And I'm a big guy that likes to go around during the course of the day when they're done meeting in the mornings, because that's what we put our time on the systems in the morning. And I'll go around to all the coaches and ask them, hey, how'd it go? Tell me what you guys are doing. And then I get questions that way and get feedback that way from the O-line coach or the D-line coach or secondary guys, or if it's Tariq or whoever it might be. And I get a lot out of that with those guys, and we have great conversations. So that's where we are right now.
Dan, I know that's music to your ears because that's one of the big criticisms you had of Matt Nagy, is that he wanted, to make all the major decisions, micromanaged, right? That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, he deflected the blame of anything that went wrong, even though he would say, it starts with me, but he didn't mean that. Mm-hmm. And he wanted all the praise and none of the blame. And I don't feel like this Eberflus guy is going to pull any punches on shit like that. It just feels like this dude's got enough backbone or integrity or something to be like, okay, put it on me. It is my fault. I feel like that's the kind of guy he is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's early, but
Yes.
I like what I've seen and heard.
Yeah, it is early. I know at the start of every season you'd hear Matt Nagy, and he sounded refreshed. Like the weeks off after being eliminated from the playoffs or not making the playoffs. The few weeks he had off before the combine refreshed him, and he'd meet at the combine. He sounded like he had just come off a cleansing, like Aaron Rodgers, just something up his ass, and all the bad toxins came out, and he was ready to go. But as the season wore on, Matt Nagy became more and more flustered after games, tough losses. He looked so flustered and stuff. So we'll see how Matt Eberflus does when there is some what's the word? Some
adversity.
Adversity. That's the word. All right, I want to play this from Ryan Poles talking about free agency. They ain't going after. Don't expect any major announcements of a superstar signed for $60 million the first couple of days of free agency. Ryan Poles has made it known more than once now that he's going to focus on the second wave. And that's not because he feels that this team shouldn't have a high-price free agent. He knows the state of the team, and they're just not ready to make that investment, and the economics being what they are right now, it's just not a good time. So he's really going to focus on the second wave of free agency, which he says is probably 2 or 3 days into free agency, and find value there. So this is Ryan Poles on the second wave of free agency.
You're going to have some players that they're motivated. They got a chip on their shoulder, and they want to get back to free agency and go at it again, so they play with a purpose. And I've mentioned this before, but it's very hard to stay super motivated. You got to be a special human being to be in that first wave and keep going. You want your name etched in the stadium. That's what kind of mentality you got to have. So I definitely think there's a lot of good value down there. Plus, like I said, the mentality comes with it.
Finding guys who and signing them to one-year contracts, prove-it deals is a tried and true formula, and that's what Ryan Poles is going to do as he's going to transform this roster. It's going to be a major, major overhaul. There are like 25 or 26 free agents currently on the team. I wouldn't be surprised if less than half of them are signed to come back, and that we're going to have a roster that looks totally different than for before. Any of you guys don't agree with that and maybe think that a lot of these Bears that are up for new contract that they're probably going to re-sign with the team and that the roster is going to look similar?
I was waiting on John.
Silence is good.
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I could see. I'm meaning that most of them will be gone. Whether or not they fit Matt Eberflus' defensive system or the offensive system that the Bears will have in place. I can tell you one thing: there's only 2 wide receivers in the wide receiver room signed their contract, so that room's going to look a lot different.
Oh, yes, it is going to look a lot different. And we've got him talking about what he's looking for in wide receivers. But, Dan, you have any thoughts on the roster before I play the next soundbite?
In terms of if it's going to be similar or different?
Correct. Or anything.
It's probably going to look drastically different.
I think so, too. I think this guy wants to make his mark. I think that they've looked at this tape and they were kind of surprised at what they saw. But let's listen to a little bit more of what he shared, and we'll get a sense of why we're probably going to look at a lot of new faces on this roster. This is Ryan Poles talking about the qualities he's looking for in a wide receiver.
I think they come in different shapes and sizes and speeds. I think it comes down to playmakers. I think we saw that in the Super Bowl. Guys that can make plays when their number's called. And that's what we look for. And you can see that on college tape. And then I will say one of the benefits of the combine is you get to see some of the physical traits as well. What sets them apart? Is it size? Is it length? Is it explosion? Is it speed? So we'll put all that together. But I would say that boils down just to being a playmaker.
I like that response because a lot of people have been, and I've said it too, saying that the Bears are going to follow the Packers model and get big, tall receivers, 6'1", 6'2", over 210 pounds. But that's not his number one priority. His number one priority is to get guys that make plays. And that to me is the most important thing. We need guys who can break tackles. We need guys who can block downfield. We need guys who can do all sorts of things to help this quarterback and give him the weapons he needs in order to become a top flight QB. Then you don't follow the free agency list very closely, right? So do you have a favorite right now in terms of who's out there free agent for a wide receiver?
No, none of it feels like it's legitimate at this point. You know what I mean? Like if you really get interested and put your heart into, I want this guy, typically it doesn't manifest. It did with Jay Cutler for me. And at the time, Julius Peppers felt like a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I don't, like you just said, Poles is not really planning on making a splash signing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to sit back and wait and see what he does.
And he was asked about Allen Robinson. And basically the question was, is the door closed on Allen Robinson? He paused and he said, I don't want to answer that question right now, which to me, it sounded like a door slamming on Allen Robinson's face. I mean, I don't think he's coming back. I just don't. Probably because of economics. I'm sure Poles and Eberflus wouldn't mind having that talent around, but they're not familiar with the drama that happened last year with A-Rob and Nagy probably any more than we are. What they are judging on is what they saw on tape, and what they saw on tape was a guy who fans say that he was loafing on some plays. I say he was injured, but either way, it was ugly. It was fucking ugly. So A-Rob,
it wasn't the year he wanted on tape.
That's for sure. That's why I don't think he was loafing, because why would you do that in a contract year? You want to score a $20 million wide receiver contract. So I'm just going to loaf downfield. I think his ankle was hurting him or whatever it was. Let me add to these qualities of wide receiver with what Matt Eberflus responded, and he was asked the same question.
Explosive athletic ability there that can produce chunk plays. That's what you want. So if you throw a screen, you want a guy that can take it and go for 15 or all the way. So because the controlled passing game is just that, but the athletes are the guys that make you miss. And that to me is so you got to have guys that are quick, explosive, strong. They have to be strong at the point of attack to be able to block, because we're going to, we're put a big onus on the running game. They have to be able to do that. And then you have to have different traits at different positions. One guy might be quick. He's really a short route runner. Another guy could do it all. That would be our number one receiver, should be able to do that. And then the other guy should be able to take the top off the defense, because that puts stress on the defense. And then you couple that with a tight end that has the ability to flex out and create mismatches. I think all those things with a great running back that's great out of the backfield, then you can't lean your defense a certain way. And I think you create a lot of stress vertically and horizontally when you have all those different traits, not only at the receiver position, tight end position, at the halfback position as well.
Man, as a communicator, Matt Eberflus is name a beautiful woman. Jennifer Lopez, and Matt Nagy was that fat girl in that Drew Carey show. So
I was going to say Matt Nagy's Dorothy from the Golden Girls.
Jeez, you go back sometimes. I love it. So I hope
what I wish they would ask, Aldo?
Sure.
I wish that someone, I know it's not their regime, but I wish that a reporter would say, you know what? We've been trying to find out what's up with Tariq Cohen for like a year and a half. Oh. Do you have any fucking updates if he's going to be on the 2022 Bears? I wish someone would ask him.
Well, he was asked that, and I didn't pull it because essentially this was his response. I wrote it down in my notes. Yeah, I'd prefer not to talk about player injuries at this point, which disappointed me, but it also tells me Tariq Cohen is going to get dropped.
Why is there so much secrecy around Cohen?
I think that they probably would love to see if they can trade him and get a 6th-round draft pick, a 5th-round draft pick, something. And so they're not going to go out in public and say, yeah, we're very disappointed this injury has taken so long. He's working hard or whatever. They don't want to say anything that could damage potential trade value, is my guess. But
is
yeah,
anybody going to trade for him though? You know, it's like his injury was so bad. He's missed like almost 2 years of football.
Yeah,
you know?
Matt Nagy might be telling Andy Reid, we need to get Tariq in here.
Let's hope so, because I don't think he's going to play.
Or Ryan Pace is telling the Atlanta Falcons, we need to get Tariq in here.
He went on the pup list and never came off all of last season.
Never. And I love Tariq Cohen. He provided us with some electrifying plays in his Bears career. But when they re-signed him, I was totally against it because I just knew his body was not going to be able to take the wear and tear of the hitting. And those kinds of players, I'm not going to say they're a dime a dozen because that is definitely not the case. But Khalil Herbert is a pretty good facsimile of Tariq Cohen. Not quite as flashy as Tariq, but he can get the job done as a returner and as a running back. And we'll see if he can also catch passes as this offense is going to give him an opportunity to catch some passes out of the backfield and line up in the slot. So, yeah, it hurts me to say, Tariq is gone, but that has to be the case, I think. And everybody in the chat room seems to be agreeing with that.
I don't know if he's back. Like, let's say he's actually healthy. I mean, I don't know because Matt Nagy, he's in the same place. That's like he would give that weird cryptic answer. He's in the same place he has been. What does that mean? Does that mean he's like fucking like doing terribly but with Grant potentially getting money on the market as a returners elsewhere, if we can't bring Jakeem Grant back, then potentially maybe Cohen's your return guy.
True. But I would make it a high priority item to bring back Jakeem Grant or somebody.
I concur.
Yeah. Again, it's brutal, but once players suffer injuries and they take a long time to come back, my radar goes up and say, danger, Will Robinson. This is not a good thing. And you need players who can suit up and play games, 17-game regular season. It'll soon be 18-game regular season. And if you don't have those guys for the majority of the time, even great depth can betray you sometimes because you could lose the backup player. We've seen that happen with the Chicago Bears many times.
Another sign Tariq to an extension.
Yeah, Ryan Pace.
Right?
And then the next week he got hurt.
That's right.
He got injured, right? I mean, first you saw more money. He's gonna be caught.
I'm always gonna side. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm always gonna side with the player when it comes down to contracts. But man, that was a kick in the nuts. It's like, wow, we will probably never see him again, and we haven't since.
I was happy for him, the man, though, because if he's going to get that horrific injury, at least for Tariq, the man,
yes,
the Bears can afford it. So I'm happy he got that money before he got hurt.
Yes. I'm totally with you, but we'll see what happens with if they want explosive playmakers. Then there was a guy playing here last year who was that. It's Jakeem Grant. So he made, I think, about $2 million last year. I think you give him $750,000 more or another $1 million more, and I think he's a lock. He'll probably accept that. I don't think he'll be offered any more than that by other teams, but it could happen. All right, offensive line was a big topic of discussion. Did I pull that offensive line sound? Oh yeah, here it is. We all, of course, know that this offensive line has to. It needs more competition, needs different type of coaching, and so Ryan Post talked about that and about where Tevin Jenkins would line up.
We're going to change it up a little bit just in terms of the style. So a lot of those guys, and the message has been pretty clear, we got to change body types a little bit. We got to get lighter. We got to get quicker. And through that, I think there's some young talent that just needs to be pressed, and that's part of our job is to create competition and bring the best out of them. So I think we'll do that, and we'll see how if the cream rises to the top, and especially with the O-line play, a lot of times, and I don't want to speak for the coaches, but it's going to end up being the best 5 to roll out there.
Ideally, where does Tevin Jenkins line up for you when you guys get on the field?
It's too early right now. When we get back, we'll get organized. I think we put out the mini camp, the extra mini camp that we get in April. So we got some time to figure that out.
The idea of going with a faster, lighter line is great. And so I'm looking at, this roster and saying to myself, who can possibly lose 30 pounds and be more effective? I'm not sure there's a lot of guys on this offensive line. Like James Daniels is a free agent this year. I mean, this guy's butt, I've seen it like right in front of me, about 20 feet away down at Bourbonnais. It's about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. I'm not sure he can take a lot of weight off. I think his body structure is that he's just going to be a big man. So maybe James Daniels is not going to be re-signed. Maybe he's one of the offensive linemen who's going to go. Cody Whitehair, we got to figure out a way to move on from that contract. I don't see the value in Cody Whitehair. I think his days with the Bears might be numbered. Might be numbered. Now he would have to be like a post June 1st cut, and they'd still be a hit on the contract. But I see a lot of changes potentially happening with this offensive line. Is that music to your ears, Dan?
Yes. I mean, I don't want to single out either guy and say that they're the problem, because I can't tell you what the problem is. I'm just a guy in this chair. But I can tell you that there's a fucking problem, and there has been for numerous seasons now. And I'm glad. That's one of the things that I'm excited about. They hire a guy whose background is an offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be where he wants to start to fix things. And that's, God, Justin Fields has got to be like, fuck yeah.
Bear Truth 9 says that James Daniels is athletic enough to move well at his weight. I won't disagree with that. There's that famous bit of video where he went out into the second level in that Minnesota game, and he blocked the guy, the defensive back. And I think the defensive back flew back like 5 yards, and Daniels just buried him. So you're right. I mean, maybe there is that chance. Tony the Podboss says Cody Whitehair is a $9 million savings post June 1st. Hey, Cody, there's a real estate agent down the street. You may want to talk to them about putting your house up for sale.
Yeah, no shit.
I know a real estate agent.
That's right. You've been in the market, right? I am scared about, making dramatic changes to the offensive line. It's like, geez, another year where it's going to be new faces on the offensive line and so forth. But it is what it is. And I think what's the most important, as he said, about these young players, Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borom, are the two biggest offensive line assets that you have. You don't know how good they are, and you don't know how good they can be. They gave us a glimpse. They gave us a test. Jenkins had all those multiple penalties, and that hurt him, but you can't excuse that because he wasn't properly prepared because of the injury he suffered. Larry Borom at the right tackle played enough to be impressive. And as somebody in the chat room said, Larry Borom lost like 30 pounds after last year's combine or leading up to the combine. He just got in incredible shape, different from what he did in college. And so perhaps he can continue to remold his body in what the Bears want. So, man, that's what I'm going to look for most. Guys, do you think, would you rather build an offensive line with young guys, or would you rather look at who's that free agent and get guys in their mid-20s, late 20s who already fit the bill and have them be your Bears offensive lineman for the next
I would
few
like
years?
to see a big signing there. It kind of makes me think of the 2005 Bears when they signed John Tate from Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
You just had a big left tackle that, okay, then you can put everything else around that. And you just, a guy that can be the leader of those men. Cause like you said, the majority of them are going to be young.
Mm-hmm.
So you sign a guy that's got some experience that commands respect, and then you're off to the races.
Mm-hmm. Tooch, you got any thoughts on how to build an offensive line? Is it a mixture of youth and age, which is I think what Dan is just saying, or do you prefer to go young and that way you got an offensive line that is together for maybe 10 years?
Well, I think you can go two ways because you've got, two tackles, Borum and Jenkins. So you could, I think you're going to have to probably mix in, the Bears will probably, at least for this year, will have to mix in some veteran free agents. Maybe they keep Whitehair. I don't know. You can get better at center,
You got it.
And yeah, you have to. And then
a good backup though.
I see Mustafa making the team somehow, some way. And you know what? When it comes to lean and able to move, Mustafa kind of fits that bill already. What he needs to do is just get stronger, which is something that he worked on hard during last year's offseason, but the results weren't there. We saw him get blown off the line. Now, he did have a lot of games where he had like all pro talent lined up against him. So he but I think Mustafa can improve. I wouldn't necessarily think he should be an immediate cut. I hope he comes back to camp and he gets a chance to win the job.
And I like Bars too.
Alex Bars, another Notre Damer, big guy, 6'5", 310 pounds. He's going to have to lose a lot more weight. But yeah, he's kind of your perfect. Neil Stopchinski was talking about this in the last draft on tap. He's kind of your perfect backup offensive lineman. I mean, in a pinch, he can go over to the left tackle. We've seen him do that in a preseason game. He can play any position in the middle. You hate to lean on players like that, but this is the age of versatility, and you need players to backup guys that can play multiple positions. PJ doesn't like Sam Mustafa. He says Mustafa is weak. He can't move anyone, but he does like Alex Bars, a good backup. I don't know. I agree more with Tony, the pod boss, who says Sam Mustafa is solid. He just isn't good at anchoring. The pocket got collapsed a lot because of him. And that's a big point.
Kind of important. Anchoring, not letting the pocket collapse. Though.
Yes, that is a good point. He's really good at technique, because he has to be. He's not as athletic as other guys, which is why he was undrafted and why it took him a long time to get a chance to get into the starting lineup, because the scouts were all pretty unanimous. This guy's a camp invite. He might get better. He might have a spot with the team, but he's not a starter. But he was forced into being a starter, and he stayed in that job. Maybe too long, maybe not. Maybe he's going to get even better. We'll see.
At the very least, he's got a lot of experience now. And if you told me that we signed a center, for example, that immediately was an upgrade, but you said, well, in case he gets hurt, we got Mustafa in the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
That's depth.
Yep. Very, very important. Now, Tooch mentioned that we only got two wide receivers signed right at the moment. But I'll tell you this, Poles was effusive in his praise of Darnell Mooney. He was asked a couple of questions about Mooney, and he shared, in one response, he shared this.
He's got a quiet confidence about him, and he's hungry to be special. I'm always looking for guys that, they just keep raising their own bar in terms of where they want to go. He wants to be special, and you can feel that in him. And I think we've all been around people that, they want to be the absolute best that they can be, and it's contagious, and it gives you energy. It gives you hope that, really, and it shows me we got to keep getting guys like that and keep adding them to the roster, because if everyone has that mentality and they start pushing each other, then all of a sudden the team starts to raise the bar and the standard, and then it's wins, and it's the division, and then it's going for championships.
I think that's a huge point, and in a different soundbite, Poles talked about how they have done some studying as to what second-year quarterbacks need in order to improve. They studied a bunch of second-year quarterbacks in the league for last several years, and one of the things they came to a conclusion is that they need guys, these second-year quarterbacks need guys that they can depend on during moments of stress. That receiver that, gets open, and the quarterback will say, I got to look for my guy here. He could be a second tight end. He could be the slot wide receiver. He could be whatever position, but they need to get that one guy. Well, you know what? They might have that guy already, Darnell Mooney, because that relationship that Fields and Mooney have struck with each other has been outstanding. Dan, what do you think the ceiling is for Darnell Mooney as a wide receiver? You think he can be like a true number one receiver, catching 90, 100 passes a season?
Before I answer that, I thought you were about to say, because of the way you paused and you were just talking about tight ends, I thought you were going to say the guy that could be Fields' like security blanket was Komet. I was going to vomit. You talk about a guy that can't break a tackle. Oh my God. Someone's always falling down and dropping passes. That might be the first thing that Poles does and says, this fucking kid sucks. But yeah, Mooney, I mean, am I sold on him being the number one receiver? Is he our Jerry Rice? Is he a Randy Moss? I don't think so. But can he be that and like be forced into the number one position? Yeah, I mean, Bernard Berrien wasn't someone that jumped off the page as your number one, but he was effective as the Bears' number one. Maybe Musa Muhammad, but still Berrien was the one producing the numbers.
Yes.
And, maybe Mooney's that kind of player that just exceeds expectations and because he's a little guy too. That's Matt Nagy I was stressed about Mooney's body because Nagy always had him running these like 3 or 4 yard crossing routes in the middle of traffic. I'm like, how many hits can he take?
Yeah. That is the concern with Darnell Mooney. The good thing is I think he's going to pack more and more muscle as the seasons go on. This will be his third NFL season. Usually it's for wide receivers of his size. You see a dramatic difference between those photographs of when they were a rookie and the small amount of muscle mass, and then 3-4 years later, they haven't grown any taller, but boy, oh boy, the muscles are starting to pop, and you could see it. Danny Shimon once described it to me when we were at practice once as that player has developed an NFL body during the offseason. So hopefully Mooney, and according to polls, this guy is dedicated to the job, wants to be one of the best, and so hopefully Mooney will add that muscle mass that will help him overcome hits. That was the thing with Tariq that always concerned me. No matter what he did. I mean, I once put up a picture. Robbie says, sign Devin Aroma should do. I once put up a picture of Darren Sproles early in his career with the Saints and Tariq Cohen when he was a rookie, and the muscle mass difference between those two guys, it was unbelievable. Sproles was like 20 to 30 pounds heavier, and it was just so solid, man. He looked like a Marvel superhero, and Tariq just looked like a small guy with freaky athletic abilities. So we'll see about Mooney. The other thing, Tooch, I know that you didn't you tell me that you were kind of eyeing one free agent wide receiver that you'd like to see the Bears entertain approaching and bringing into the team?
Well, it isn't that great of a class, but there are some out there. I mean, I'm thinking like if they're looking at getting a slot wide receiver, there's guys out there like Smith-Schuster and Christian Kirk. I think Christian Kirk coming off his best year in Arizona, and then Juju Smith-Schuster has had good years. He hasn't really had good quarterback play the past couple of years. And then of course he had an injury a couple of years back, but might be an intriguing guy. He's a big target. And then a guy I'm thinking might be the Bears' target would be Marcus Valdez-Scantling, who Luke Getsy knows quite well. He's big. He's very fast, man. There's, he's a guy that, if he gets behind the secondary, they're not catching him. He's got that kind of speed. I think he ran like a 4.3 40 at the combine when he was coming out. Those guys, they've been in Luke Getsy's system. They block, like guys like Alan Lazard and Marcus Valdez-Scantling and Devontae Adams. They all block in the run game. That's why Aaron Jones has a lot of success over there. And then, you've got your other guys like DJ Chark and Mike Williams, but these are guys that kind of Chark injured. Mike Williams has been kind of underperforming until Justin Herbert came around. He kind of woke up a little bit, but he's not fast or anything. He's just like a 6'5", 230-pound guy that's good in the red zone. But I think they'll probably go after MVS. I would think that's a guy that Luke Getsy could plug in immediately. On the outside. Darnell Mooney, do I think he could be a number one wide receiver? Yes. Will he? I don't know. I mean, it's really up to him. He kind of reminds me of Marvin Harrison. Remember the old Colts wide receiver?
Oh, who could forget?
About the same size. Marvin Harrison might have been a little bit bigger, but kind of the same kind of body control and moves that Marvin Harrison had. Darnell Mooney, he could be a guy that is that safety blanket for Justin Fields. But the other guy that's under contract is Daz Newsome, who I think played like maybe a couple dozen snaps throughout the whole season.
Yeah. Well, I think he suffered an injury in the preseason, and so that slowed his development. But when he played late in the season, those few snaps we saw him, he wasn't unimpressive. So hopefully he's going to make some big advances this offseason, and we'll see him contributing. I want to get Dan's reaction to this because I think it's going to be interesting. But first, Tony the Pop Ball says, if I'm paying top dollar for a wide receiver, he has to be better than Allen Robinson. I don't see that in free agency outside of Adams. I agree with you, Tony. And then PJ earlier says, I would gladly bring back Anthony Miller, Kevin White, and Riley Ridley on the cheap. They all have talent. They need better coaching to go along with Mooney and a second-round draft pick like Olave. Dan Aguirre, what do you think about bringing back Miller, White, and Ridley? Sounds like a law firm.
I don't think Kevin White's in the league this season.
He is actually. I just checked.
No, but in 22, I don't think he'll be on the roster.
He is. He's on the Saints roster right now. So
yeah, do you think he'll make the team in the fall? Is what I'm saying. I don't think he'll be. I think his career's over.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I don't want Anthony Miller back. And Riley Ridley, I don't even know what we had. I mean, it's just like he never got on the field. But maybe we can trade for Calvin.
He spent his whole Bears career in Matt Nagy's doghouse.
Yes.
He had a bed and a snack table in there.
Yes.
It just seems like such a vindictive, thin-skinned fuck, Nagy.
Yeah, the story.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not going to give Ridley a chance because, he hurt my feelings or something. I could just see Nagy. I wish we could get somebody else to talk about it. Like I said, that our offensive coordinator, the dude from Oregon in 18, I would love to hear what he has to say.
Riley Ridley's brother is a guy that you could see in a Bears uniform if Atlanta's trying to, get rid of him. Calvin Ridley, he had the little mental breakdown during this past season. If Atlanta's looking to maybe trade him for, maybe a third or fourth round pick, that might be wishful thinking. But I mean, Calvin Ridley, boy, he would look pretty good if he does all of his problems are behind him. He'd look pretty good in the Bears uniform.
Mm-hmm. I got a call today from somebody many of us know and love. Not everybody. I know that. Mike North says, I want to do a show Thursday. I go, why, Mike? What's on your mind? He goes, Mitch Trubisky. I see everybody talking about Mitch Trubisky, and he's going to finally get his shot to be a number one quarterback. And I want to go do my show on Thursday to talk about Mitch Trubisky. So on Thursday at 9 a.m. Central, the Mike North Advantage, we don't do a weekly show anymore. We do a show whenever Mike has an itch to share something. And so, with all the Trubisky news, I was looking at my phone saying, Mike is going to call any minute. And so I want to ask you guys, do you think Trubisky has a shot to be a starter in the NFL?
Why not?
Wouldn't it be something if Lovie got him?
Oh,
Dan, I never got your thoughts on Lovie becoming the head coach of the Texans.
I'm going to root for him. I mean, we only play them once every 4 seasons. I think in Tampa, I didn't want to lose to him at all, and thankfully Cutler beat him. But now that he's in Houston, I mean, like you said, they're going to be my AFC team. Why not root for Lovie? Like, he's still the guy that took us to the Super Bowl, the first African-American head coach to advance to the Super Bowl. And why not have Lovie win in Houston? I would like to see it.
I had Rachel Van Orange on my show Tuesday, who's a local Houston TV personality, and we talked at length about Lovie Smith, and she likes the signing, but he's kind of like the stopgap, get the locker room in order, see what else he can bring to the top, but likes the signing. He hired Pep Hamilton to be his offensive coordinator. That's a good hire. Pep, a good offensive mind, and then talked about the quarterback situation with Deshaun Watson and what's going to happen with him. No one knows. And they still have Tyrod Taylor and Davis Mills. But Lovie, I asked her, whether she thought, maybe the league can pass Lovie by. And I mean, I don't think so, because a lot of people are still, people use the Tampa 2, cover 2, whatever you want to call it, still, keeping plays in front of you. Lovie's philosophy was make a team march all the way downfield, because sooner or later they're going to make a mistake, a turnover. Peanut Tillman's going to punch the ball out. Someone's going to fumble or throw the ball. Someone's going to jump a slant route and get an interception. That was Lovie's whole deal. And I think Lovie will be a pretty good influence in Houston. And at the time that team is in right now, with the Deshaun Watson scandal, and Bill O'Brien leaving, and all that, they have a new general manager as well too. So I was curious. I was going to ask Dan, but now that we're talking, Lovie Smith anyways, what does Dan think? I know you're going to root for him, but good hire?
Given all the chaos they've had recently with the owner not liking Watson and Watson not liking the owner, and then all that shit with Watson and the alleged, like, hey, can you play with my asshole and all this stuff, and needing stability, Lovie's the kind of guy that he's sort of like Dusty Baker in baseball. You have Astros have a huge fucking scandal, they cheat, and no one wants to gig. Well, you bring Dusty in, and that motherfucker will turn you around. I think Lovie can provide some stability there, and he is the kind of guy that sort of gets respect and commands respect from his players. So that maybe that's what they need in that town to sort of rebuild the squad. I think it's a good hire.
Yeah, I'm glad he's getting another opportunity. I don't have high expectations for what he's going to do with that franchise, because it's in such disarray. It's not like he's being handed a squad with a lot of talent, and the whole quarterback situation being the way that it is. But they do have some resources to build a good team. So I think it's going to be much more about the general manager bringing in talent for the Texans than it is about Lovie's coaching. Lovie's going to field a good defense. He's going to make the necessary changes to the cover 2, and he's going to do well. And that quarterback, that Davis Mills, holy cow, man, he had a really good for a 3rd round draft pick. He had a really good rookie season.
A couple nice games, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the comments in the chat room are getting pretty good. Look, Swanky gets right to the point.
Aldo, can you imagine having Deshaun Watson as a $40 million cap hit? Who the fuck pays these idiots?
There's another good one too.
PJ,
can you imagine?
If Trubisky doesn't get a starting job, I would gladly sign Trubisky to be our backup for 2 years after trading Foles to Jacksonville. What do you think about Trubisky, guys?
Yeah. No way Jacksonville's going to trade back for Foles, and there's no way that Mitch would voluntarily come back here. Not to shit on the gentleman's question. I just don't see it.
Would Mitch come back here to compete with Justin Fields, though?
No.
For a starting job? No.
I think he'll probably, because of the quarterback situation the way it is in the NFL, and these guys who have retired, these stars that have retired at the position, Roethlisberger and Brady and so forth.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be such a need for quarterbacks in this quarterback class. Nobody that's going to be drafted in the first round at the quarterback position is going to be starting in 2022. There just is not a starter in place. And so Trubisky will probably be signed by one of those teams, and he'll probably get the opportunity to start.
There's a lot of openings. this season.
Yeah, they really are.
You know, New Orleans, possibly. You know, I mean, you mentioned Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh. You know, what about Cleveland? That's Mitch's hometown.
Yeah.
You know, Baker Mayfield. They might. I could see Mitch going to the Browns to compete with Baker Mayfield for. You know, they're both Baker Mayfield was drafted number 1 overall. Mitch number 2 overall. Why not let them battle it out? You know, or Mitch goes back to Buffalo.
I could see the Browns dropping Baker Mayfield. I don't know what the economics on that is, and naming Trubisky their starter.
Isn't Mayfield a free agent?
I think he's in that. I think they picked up the 5th-year option, so he's going to make $18 million this season, I believe. Now they can go back on that, like the Bears did with Leonard Floyd. There are still people in the Cleveland organization who think that that Baker Mayfield can be a good quarterback, and that the troubles he had last season were due to the amount of injuries. I mean, the guy was really banged up left and right, up and down. Good call, Tooch, with Cleveland, says Laz. Dan, you were going to say something about Trubisky.
I was going to say, when it was brought up about Mitch trying to come back to Chicago, can you think in your head, and this is rhetorical because I don't know an answer off the top of my head. I'm not trying to ask you like a trivia question. Okay. Can you think of any player at any time that received just heavy scrutiny in one town or one team, and that, you know, needed the proverbial, you know, fresh start somewhere else, and then ultimately came back to that team? Like, I can't think of that. Like, someone that was essentially forced out.
Yeah.
I don't remember them ever voluntarily going back to that team.
Yeah, I off the top of my head, I don't remember that, but I bet you there is a name. BJ wants to know from you, Dan, why not Foles back with Doug Peterson, who is the new head coach in Jacksonville?
I just don't see Jacksonville trading back for him, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, like you said, he did win the Super Bowl with Doug Peterson, but I don't think they would trade to bring Foles back again, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be what's his name's backup, Trevor Lawrence. So, you know, I could potentially see him being a backup for Lawrence because he is so good in the quarterback room at tutoring quarterbacks. He's probably going to be a coach in the NFL soon after retiring, and so Foles has that value. And
he could also help Fields.
That is true. That is true.
If you told me Foles was the backup this year, I wouldn't be like, oh. But if you told me Dalton was, I would be ready to fight somebody. What the fuck? That guy's got to be gone.
I'd love to see a cage match between Tooch and Dan, just going at it. You guys wearing like Speedos or something?
Nah, no one wants to see me in Speedo, but no one wants to see Andy Dalton back either.
I mean, Dalton and Foles are decent backups, but I mean, overpriced, certainly.
The thing about backups is why have a backup who is a stationary target to a quarterback who moves? I mean, go sign Tyrod Taylor or one of those quarterbacks who's not necessarily a pocket quarterback, or somebody who has some mobility, so that when you put your reserve quarterback in for whatever reason, you don't have to, the style of the team doesn't change. I mean, do you guys see any
Well, don't
value?
forget when Nagy if the quarterback did change because of injury or what have you, Nagy didn't realize it, never changed the plays to suit the quarterback that was in there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, if Fields is in there, we're going to keep calling the plays that Dalton was going to run, and vice versa. I'm just so glad he's gone.
Dan Foster Covers says, watch Mitch Trubisky end up on Green Bay and kick our ass for 10 years.
Post
I
Rodgers.
liked it. Let me just say that again. I liked Mitch. I would hate for him to go to Green Bay, Detroit, or Minnesota. I always feel that way whenever it's one of our guys. I don't want him to go to our divisional opponents.
Yeah, and I don't want our guys to go to the divisional opponents too. Adrian Amos.
That was my point. That's what I was saying. I don't want to see Trubisky to go to one of those other teams.
Oh, I get your point.
Didn't McMahon went to the rival?
Yeah, but
division
McMahon
rival.
was already 37 and was about to retire when he.
Tom Zach too, didn't he? Did Tom Zach play for?
Yeah,
Green Bay
Tom
for
Zach
one
went there
season?
1 year. Then he played like 5 years in Pittsburgh. Yeah, he was Plan B, I think, going to Green Bay, and we beat him when it was head to head, thankfully. So
Right.
with Harbaugh.
I don't know, man. This is going to be a wild offseason with the quarterback, tracing where quarterbacks are going to go.
Who's to say that Buffalo just doesn't bring Mitch back as the backup?
Buffalo did today. The Sean McDermott at the combine said Mitch Trubisky is going to be competing for a number one job elsewhere. He signed a 1-year contract with Buffalo, and so the indication is they're not going to re-sign him because Trubisky is going to get offered a contract that Buffalo won't match because Trubisky will be competing for a number one job somewhere. So
why wouldn't he get a deal last year and then suddenly he's getting a deal this year?
Because there are no number one quarterbacks in the draft this year. Anyone that, like I said a few minutes ago, anyone that's drafted in the first round as a quarterback it needs a year or two of mentoring. So there's going to be 32 quarterback positions, but only 28 capable quarterbacks. And so Trubisky will probably be tried out as a number one because there's just the need that the market says there's a need.
And I think the fact that Matt Nagy failed so miserably here in 2021 sort of maybe gives him, like, people are like, it wasn't all Mitch's fault. No, it wasn't. So it gives him a credibility boost.
And John is laughing because Robbie put up
Some of the comments are hilarious tonight.
Robbie says Mitch will get a contract, get invited to the draft party, and see his replacement be drafted. It's the curse of going. Yeah. I got a couple of more sound bites here. If you guys want to listen to them, let's see what we got here. This is Matt Eberflus talking about the cornerback qualities. Because again, this team is in need of a cornerback to start opposite Jalen Johnson and in need of a slot corner. So what are they looking for?
For us, it's a couple things. You have to have quickness. You have to have instincts. When I say instincts, that means that ball instincts. So you want to be able to, yes, react to plays and all that, but we want guys that are ball hawks at the corner position. And the reason I said quickness versus because to get the ball, you have to be quick at a transition. At the top of your routes, you're going to have to do a great job of transitioning to either bust the triangle up or take the ball away. So those two things. Then really the last thing for us would be speed. You have to have speed at that position because you have to have makeup speed. You're going to be out of position sometimes. The receivers are some of the best guys on the field. So really I would say those three things.
Where the hell are we going to find that?
I'm personally really down on their corners. Like, I think Johnson's overloved, and same for Vildor. I think Vildor is awful. Mm-hmm. So we really need, to me, the secondary and the offensive line are the two number one positions that need to be reworked this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ready to give up on Kindle Vildor. I know he had a bad stretch there towards the end of the season that led to his benching. But
the end of the season, I thought he was shitty the whole season.
See, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. First half dozen games, you hardly heard the name Kindle Vildor mentioned because he wasn't giving up any big plays. But as the season wore on, they just figured, Jalen Johnson's playing really well. Let's start picking on the other guy, and they did so with. But some of those plays that Vildor gave up, big plays, it was like he was so close. He was so close. The biggest thing that concerns me about Vildor is whether he really has the NFL body. And during the press conference today, one of the things they were talking about were matchups. If you're in a division with a lot of big wide receivers, then you need big cornerbacks. Well, the Bears are in a division with big wide receivers, and Ryan Pace drafted a guy who I stood next to at the Senior Bowl, and I was towering over Kindle. I swear to God, he was not eye to eye with me. I was looking down at him. At first, when he was just standing there, nobody was talking to him. I went up to him, and I just wanted to take a peek at his name badge because I didn't know who he was. And I saw the name Kindle Vildor, looked at my notes. Oh, yeah, you got Kindle. You got a couple moments to talk. And so I did a quick interview with him. But he's not a good fit for the Bears right now. But I still think that he could end up having a good NFL career. And Bierman says Thomas Graham Jr. could be a really good player for this Bears team.
I could see Graham. I see Graham being superior to Vildor, And like I said, I kind of feel like Johnson is one of those guys that's a little bit iffy on the character and stuff. So, I mean, like, I don't like Nagy any more than anybody else, but he was, outing him on Twitter and all this.
Yeah.
Shit. I mean, and he seems very diva-ish, if that's an adjective.
Well, I mean, did you see the letter that Nagy wrote to him about what was he late to a meeting or something? It's like,
yes,
he got fined like $500 or $5,000 or something like that for being late to a meeting. And it was like,
where's Dick Butkus when we need him? He would be yelling at you right now.
It was
What
a
would
Nagy
Howard
form
have done,
letter.
Cooch? He'd have fined your ass for being 1 minute late.
True.
Yeah.
The thing is that, why don't you pull the player aside and say, listen, man,
I agree with you. I agree with both of you. I'm just saying, to me, Jalen Johnson seems like he's, I don't think you post that shit online, but that's just me. Whatever, man. I'm afraid he's a diva, is what I'm saying.
So that was like one of the things that would like, the wheels were coming off the Nagy wagon, with you get a glimpse into the locker room, falling apart. This is what I would say, back when Nagy was still the coach, when I was coming on the show, saying, I think the locker room, there's some turmoil there with stuff like that. You get occasionally we were getting glimpses into like how the players really felt about Matt Nagy, because publicly they would say, oh yeah, we got coaches back and all this shit, because they're talking to their future coaches, they're not talking about Matt Nagy, and then other stuff we would get glimpses into, the cracks in the foundation and stuff. I think that was if you were reading between the lines, that's what I was getting, Aldo.
Yeah. I don't argue with that. What do you guys think about the tight end position? I know Dan earlier said that he's not a big fan of Cole Kmet. I disagree with you guys.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the guy is young. He's growing into the job. I think this third year in the NFL, he's going to show us some growth. I do believe in him. I know
you've always said it takes time with tight ends. Although,
yep, exactly.
So I'm hoping, but he does not seem very fast or very athletic. That's what Dan and I.
And he's not. He's not, that athletic pass catching wide receiver. He's more the blocking guy who can also be your safety valve and create some plays.
But he doesn't have good hands. How's he going to be the safety valve? He drops all kinds of passes.
He has had some problems with
good hands.
Robbie says he likes. Would you prefer Jesse James over?
I would,
or Jesper Horsted. Either one of those guys have played better than Kmet, but his draft status has kept him in politically.
Yeah.
I would.
Jesse James he caught a pass, made a nice cut. He like faked somebody out. And I was like, for a guy that's 6'8", he moves a lot better than Cole Kmet. I didn't expect that from him. Then you got like Dan is calling for Jesper Horsted, who's smaller and faster, and that's the kind
good
of guy,
hand. Great hand.
Good hands.
And he's the answer to the trivia question, who caught Fields' first touchdown?
That's right. That is right. And he should catch like about 10 of them a year if you get the playing time. Mo Bierman says it took Kelsey 3 years to learn the position fully. All you got to do is ask. And he's right. The tight end position, because there's so many responsibilities. It's about blocking. It's about pass patterns. It's about all sorts of stuff. And so, it's one of the more difficult positions. Wide receiver used to also be that way, but that's changed because college football now is just pass. Yeah. And these guys these wide receivers who would come into the NFL with the limited knowledge of the route tree, so many of them now have much more knowledge, and they can be more effective, at least, in some ways, in their rookies. Second, I would never draft a wide receiver in my fantasy football team if he was Bearman says we don't need 9 tight ends. No, we just need 3 good ones. That's all.
We had 12 last year, Bearman.
Yes.
How about this as an indictment on Kmet? He was drafted by Ryan Pace.
Oh my gosh, drop him right now.
I mean, how long before we kind of come to the realization that Ryan Pace wasn't really that good at drafting? I mean, Adam Shaheen, Kevin White, what are some of the other like first and second round picks he missed on? You know, I'm just like he'll hit on the fourth rounds and fifth rounds and sixth round. He's like a superstar there. But I mean, you have to hit on the first and second rounders. You know, that's
right. And those middle and late rounders, those are usually the scouts' choices. They have much more input on that.
Great point.
Ryan Pace, because of the money that's spent on first and second rounders, that's basically his decision.
Cody Whitehair and James Daniels.
2 second rounders and 2 average right now offensive linemen. Whitehair will always remain average, in my opinion. James Daniels, though, has the potential because he's so young. What is he, 23 years old and already has 4 years of experience? James Daniels has the chance to be a all-pro or Pro Bowl caliber offensive lineman. But it may not be with the Bears. We'll see. He's going to get $10 million easily somewhere, guys. And I don't think any of you guys want him to make that with the Bears, right?
No.
Hair Bear says that Pace didn't hit shit. I lost it.
Sorry, it's my fault.
It's all right because all them good picks were hit on by the scouts.
Yeah, that's what Aldo says. Yep, those are the scouts' picks, the later round picks, and probably weren't even Ryan Pace's picks. I guess we're giving him credit for guys who probably didn't pick. You know,
exactly. And then he would lie about, like Dan said earlier, there was consensus in the room that everybody wanted Mitch Trubisky to be the quarterback. No, that's not quite true.
They put out a video, the team did, where they were celebrating the Trubisky pick.
Yep.
And Pace said that. He goes, and you guys, he was the consensus pick for out of us, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like everyone was like agreeing and clapping. Mm-hmm. And so at that moment, I was like, okay, good. Let's buy in for Mitch then. But now looking back on it, it was probably a lie.
Yeah. Let's see. I saw a comment here that I want to share, and it just went away from me. Let's see. Where is it? I think it was from Foster, but I don't see it now. Foster does say here, Komet's not the guy.
Sorry, I had it too. I messed it up.
Komet's not the guy. Hope I'm wrong. If he's not fast, you answered it. Komet's gone. And Komet is not fast. Not every tight end who is a good tight end is fast. He's got.
What does he do well that you think is so like impressive? I just don't see it.
He is a good blocker.
Is he?
Yes. He's not a bad blocker. He still needs improvement, but he's a good blocker. His youth. His age is a positive. He's got 2 years.
Get him some better cleats. Why is he always falling?
I understand your frustration with him. I just think that it's too early to kick him out the door. Robbie
I'm not saying that he should be, but I honestly believe if he weren't selected as high as he was, his play would warranted being benched last season.
I just don't agree with that. I don't think that Jesse James is that is better than Cole Kmet.
Jimmy Graham was there. Jesper Horsted was there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Horsted, all he does is catch passes. They always said that about Chris Carter with the touchdowns when Philly, utilized him. All he does is catch. Remember, Buddy says all he does is catch touchdown, but we're going to cut him anyway because he's got drug problem.
Tony, the pod boss is like got Aldo's back here.
Yeah, Komet had 600 yards receiving. He's a solid tight end. Give him some time, brother.
I hope I'm wrong.
I have a question.
We kind of have to. We invested a second round pick in him, right? We got to see if he's good. At least this next year, right?
Yeah. I have a question. In the press conference today, posed a couple of times, talked about players who want to be great, who want to see their names etched on the stadium wall. And when he said that, I immediately thought, I got to ask Dan this question. And Tooch, I'd love your opinion too on this. Do you think Khalil Mack wants his name etched on that wall? Do you think that he is a player who works so hard because he wants to be the absolute best? Or do you think that Khalil Mack has relied on his awesome, incredible athletic ability, but hasn't done other things to make himself a true great of the game?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I feel like I can't answer that, and it's not to just puss out or something. I've not really got a sense of Mack's personality at all. Anytime he speaks, he really doesn't say anything. It's like he was the perfect player for Matt Nagy or John Fox in that regard. You know, it's like I don't know anything about his personality. He's never really said anything, except that one year he's like, "Oh, I'm working out on the bike," or whatever in the preseason, and he did a Zoom call from his bike or whatever. I don't know. I hope that if he's still here, that he finally becomes the kind of guy that we saw Donald be in the Super Bowl, just the guy that can turn the game around. I thought that's who we were trading for, and he did that for a couple of games in 18, and he hasn't since.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, he was harshly outplayed by Robert Quinn. I know he was hurt earlier in the year, but Quinn did all of that without him. He's never played as well as Quinn did last season. Never, at least with the Bears, except for a couple of games in 2018. So is he hungry? Is he complacent because of all the money? It's not fair for me to make that assessment.
What do you think, Tooch?
You know, it's a great question because there's been, I mean, the leaves are rustling with this in the time that Mack was here and probably like when he was on his way to the Bears from the Raiders, mm-hmm. that like, you know, he didn't really, he relied on his athletic ability for everything, you know, because he was such a phenomenal athlete. And maybe didn't put as much effort into, sharpening his body to withstand some of this pounding and, you know, stave off the injuries and stuff, you know, maybe flexibility or whatever kind of training they're doing these days to sort of keep the injury bug away. And I think at least for this year, he was definitely hurt. You know, I know Robert Quinn had a fantastic season. The year before, Robert Quinn was hurt. You know, Mack was carrying the load. So would it have been nice to have both of them, you know, healthy at the same time? Hell yeah, we would have been a different story. Although Matt Nagy might still be here, so maybe it's a good thing that they were, you know, took a little injury there. But I think this season there were little stories about this and out there you could find. And I think this season he probably realized I have to do some things differently, you know, just to stay healthy, just to, you know, maybe watch more film and study more. And you know, we'll see. I mean, Eberflus will know how to get the best out of him. You know, I think that's for sure.
Right.
Doesn't it feel like if we went to hell, if there really was a hell, that part of your punishment would just be to just stare at images of Nagy smiling? That smile that he knows I stole all this money from the McCaskey.
I've actually prayed about this a couple of times. I wish I could exercise him out of my mind. I don't want any memory of Matt Nagy ever again.
I would have rather Lovie come back or John Fox stay. He was worse than Tressman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. That's debatable, but we'll debate about that some other time. I had a thought about Khalil.
You could argue that Tressman had more offensive success. So certainly could make that argument.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You know, but they were Tressman was just weird, you know, and then Matt Nagy was a phony, you know. So we had these two guys that just they were poison for a player who would play under them. That's the feeling. I got that feeling from Nagy after 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Got to tell you, Khalil Mack started this season. Let me see if I can find the stats here real well, just so that we can remember the great start he had in 2021. And I think a lot of that credit goes to Sean Desai as well, because he had these exotic pass rushing schemes, and maybe Mike Patton too deserves credit. But in his first game of the 2021 season, he had 0 sacks. That was followed by 1 sack against Cincinnati, 2 sacks against the Browns in Cleveland, the game Dan and I were at.
And he played hurt in that game. We have to give him credit.
Right.
Remember, he left. That's the game where he ultimately hurt his foot that he would have to get surgically repaired.
Exactly. So the following week at Detroit, Dan and I were at that one. He had 1 sack in that game. He had another sack against the Raiders the following week and another sack the following week. So in a 5-game period, he had 6 sacks. And so that was one of his best starts ever with the Chicago Bears. Sean Desai had that chicken tikka defense, Robbie.
So Robbie's making me hungry now.
But what I want to say about Khalil is that one of the things Bill Shuey, his linebackers coach, said last season is that because Mack was unable to practice, he was held out of practice throughout the week. We had asked him to do more mental reps. And Shuey's exact quote was, which is something that he's never done before. And so that bothers me. That bothers me because I think all of the great players, Bill Russell, I remember reading his autobiography, and he said in those long bus rides, he would close his eyes and he would play the game in his mind from the opening tip to the final gun. Wayne Gretzky always visualized the game, which is why he could see the ice rink at a 360-degree. Michael Jordan, all of these great players, they visualized it. They did more than hitting weights and, doing all this great athletic stuff to be prepared physically for the double teams and triple teams like Mack would face. But what Mack apparently didn't do prior to this last season was visualize the game, which is to me an indictment that he didn't put in all of the work. You got to do the physical and the mental. He didn't put in all of the mental work to show up and be ready to go get after quarterbacks. Now, maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I think there's something to that. Hopefully his off-season rehab is going well, and hopefully he's spending a lot of time visualizing what he has to do, creating new pass rush moves, figuring out ways to avoid double teams and stuff. If he has, then maybe he'll have a nice 15-sack season with the Bears in 2022.
And maybe he could be inspired by the play of Quinn.
Exactly. Those two guys together at the defensive end position, no longer having to drop back and pass patterns, although they're going to do it, you'll still see it from time to time a little bit. But for the most part, 99% of the time, they're going to be going forward and getting after the quarterback. That's going to be huge. Quinn and Mack on a 4-3 defense, holy shit. If those guys stay healthy, they could be great. Somebody in the chat room earlier said, what, do you think that Robert Quinn is going to regress in 2022? What do you guys think?
I don't see why he would.
Yeah, I don't see he's turned around his mental health issue that he had a problem with in 2021, which resulted in a poor season, only 2 sacks. So
I think he was going through a divorce in 20.
Yeah.
If I heard that correctly. And as I know, that'll fuck with you. Like, you can't quantify how much that will fuck with you. So like he was embarrassed by that year. He was going through immense pressure at home. Plus he was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So all that combined for a terrible season. And he absolutely redeemed himself.
Yeah. Ravi says that the Bears D might be a top 5 defense this year. You have any reason to disagree with that, Tooch?
Well, the chat room's excited about it. Aldo got him fired up with, talk of Quinn and Mack at the same time, and not having to drop into coverage and all this stuff. But do you think the Bears are counting on both these guys back next year?
2022, this season?
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if they decided to say, hey, we're blowing the whole fucking thing up. Give me some draft picks and stuff. Yep. This is an interesting draft. And that what I've heard from people like Daniel Jeremiah is that the picks from 15 to 60, all of those players could be interchangeable. Like the 60th player on a board could be the number 15 on some other team's board because that talent level in that area is so similar. And so what does that tell me? Man, this would be a great year to have a couple of second rounders or a couple of third rounders in addition to the second rounder. So if you can trade some of these veteran guys and pick up some draft assets in those first 60, 65 picks, might benefit the team.
If you could trade Mack, I would move him because of the contract. If someone would actually give you something for him, a third, fourth round pick and accept that debt, I would move 52. I know that I'm going to be scolded for that, and I wish him well if he's here. I'll root for him, but if I could trade him, I would.
But the thing is that if you trade him, you're really not saving any money because the dead cap money is like $36 million. You're still in it for a hell of a lot. You're using a credit card and you're getting rid of them, but all the finance charges are due, and they're a hell of a lot on a huge contract like his.
This is what I was talking about.
Doesn't the other team accept that responsibility with the trade?
No, they do not. They accept the money due to him in the future, but money that has been offset because.
Oh, okay, I got you. That's mitigated with the sign-in bonuses.
Yes, exactly. So and I'm not a financial expert by any means, but Gabriel has explained it to me a couple of times, and I nod my head agreeing with him. But in actuality, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. My wife.
Ryan Pace saddled us with so many bad contracts.
Oh my God.
Ryan Poles, he's sitting back, man. I hope they renew that TV contract so we get some more salary cap space.
Exactly.
Because goddamn, the guy before me robbed the cupboard. It's cupboard's bare.
Well, here's the good news. We're going to have a lot of Bears news to talk about over the next 2 to 3 weeks because the combine will be over by the time we meet again next Tuesday. We'll also free agency frenzy will start the following week. So we'll have a lot to talk about there. The OTAs are not too far down the line, so we'll have a lot to talk about there. So we've got a lot of Bear stuff to talk about on this show and on other shows on the Bear Network. But I want to, in these last 10 minutes that we have, I want to turn things over to Dan Aguirre, who was profoundly impacted by the conclusion of, what's the name of that show? Euphoria. And so for those of you who don't want any spoilers at the end, you might want to turn off now and join us back again here tomorrow with Bar Down Hockey at 2 p.m. Central. Dan, it's all yours, brother.
Are you familiar with the characters of Fesco and Ashtray?
One of them is the drug dealer, right?
Right.
Yeah.
At the beginning of season 2, you got their backstory.
Yeah, it was great. The grandmother raised them. I told Aldo before the show the backstory was great.
Yeah, the backstory is his grandmother was a drug dealer and essentially needed a partner, and Fez was the little boy, and she used that. And then because somebody owed her money or something, gave her another child for collateral, and that ended up being Ash. And when he was a baby, he was eating ash, cigarettes out of an ashtray, so they called him Ashtray. In reality, he's a 15-year-old actor. He's a boxer. He's training for the 2024 Olympics for America, actually. Mm-hmm. And he's still in high school. But over the course of the last 2 seasons, if you follow the show online at all, that they've both sort of become fan favorites, if you will, coming from sort of nothing. The story of the actor that plays Fesco, the casting crew saw a guy walking down the street who wasn't even an actor and liked the way he looked and talked to him, and they cast him as Fez. They just saw him walking down the street, and of course he passed the auditions and stuff, but they just liked his look. They thought that's the way the character should look, right there. His style, his presence. So initially they were going to kill him in the first season. They didn't. And from all the stuff I've read, he was supposed to die at the end of season 2 as well. But again, he's just so popular with the fan base of this show. So at the end of season 1, he killed this awful drug dealer. It was a cliffhanger at this season 1. You didn't know what had happened. But Mouse is the guy that forced Rue to take that shit that killed Prince and Tom Petty. What is it called? Fentanyl. He forced her to take fentanyl in season 1 and all this. So he's just an awful guy, but he killed Mouse. So that was like the police were on to somebody killing this other drug dealer, and they started to suspect him. One of his friends was snitching and was trying to basically get in with the cops and was willing to testify against him because he knew that Fesco had killed this guy at the end of season 1. So at the end of the episode, Fesco's had gotten a love interest with Maud Apatow, who's playing Lexi, and he's supposed to be going to Lexi's play. He's in a tux, and this guy, this shitbag, shows up, and you're like, oh no, here it is. And he's got his phone on, and it's on record so that the police can hear the conversations and stuff. So Ashtray recognizes what's going on, and he stabs the guy in the throat and kills him. And of course, Fez is trying to tell him not to, and he does it anyway. So now they know the police are about to raid the house. They know it just killed their informant. So Fez is like, look, man, just give me the knife, surrender, and I'm going to take the blame here.
Was Custer the informant?
Yes.
Okay.
So he wanted Ashtray to turn himself, because again, he views Ash as his brother. So he's like, give me the knife, go turn yourself in, and I'm taking the blame for this. So Ash refuses, hits him in the head and distracts him, and like just for a minute, just so he couldn't physically overpower him, and goes all Pacino and grabs all these weapons and locks himself in the bathroom. So Fez is like, Ash, don't do it. He's screaming like, get out of there, get out of there, get out of there. The police raid the place, and
I'm sorry, Dan. I was giving you some B-roll. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the acting is phenomenal, and he just the emotion. You know, he's begging him to come out, and the police come in. He's got his hands up immediately. He's trying to show the police, I'm no threat to you, but he's screaming. He's a kid. He's a kid. Please don't shoot him. He's a fucking kid. Well, Ash can't see what's going on, and there ends up being some gunfire. So he opens up all these semi-automatic weapons, and there's firing. Fesco gets shot in the stomach in a bad spot where you could easily bleed out. He's laying there still attending to his wound and begging Ash to turn himself in and stop. And eventually the police just, shoot, an enormous amount of rounds, and they open the door to see if he's in there. And they said, he's down. The man's down. And he was faking. And he jumps up, Ash does, and shoots a policeman. And he's standing there with the gun. And the thing that really affected me was, you see this from Fez's perspective as he's sitting there, and Ash is standing with the gun after he just shot the policeman. And you see Ash look down and see the red laser pointer at his stomach. And he slowly looks up as the laser pointer goes to his forehead. And then suddenly all you can hear is Ashtray's breathing. It's real heavy, because how would you feel like, oh shit, I'm about to get shot by the police? And his breathing is real heavy. And then you see it from Fez's perspective. It cuts away, and you hear the shot, and you just see Fez's eyes as he looks away, and he's about to cry. And you'd have to see it. Like, I don't know if I'm doing a good enough job, but just the drama of him begging him to turn himself in. And like I said, you see the laser pointer, and he raises up, and his breathing's real heavy. And then he just gets shot, man. And I guess technically you didn't see the shot. So maybe if they've been renewed for season 3, you could say, well, maybe they didn't shoot him in the head. Maybe they just shot him in the chest, whatever. But Fez's eyes to me said, no, they shot him in the head. He's gone. But the actor, the kid that plays him, the 15-year-old, confesses that he doesn't know the outcome. He's like, I hope they somehow bring me back, and I'd like to be on the show. And he's like, I would be a little bit bitter if they're still doing it and I'm not part of it. And he said they rewrote it, man. It was supposed to be Fez that died. And like the day before the shooting, they're like, we can't kill Fez, so it's you, buddy.
Geez, that sucks.
Yeah, and the actor that plays Fez was upset about it too, because he says, he's a little kid, and he kind of does look at him as his brother almost, so he hated that too. But just the suspense, the drama, man, when it was over, because there's so much more catharsis with other characters that I don't want to ruin for you. They are not the main characters by any stretch.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind, is there any way you could play the third video so you could see what I was talking about with Ash dying, so
Sure.
I could get your reaction before I go?
Give me a minute to rack it up. Hold on just a second.
Yeah, this season has a whole lot of great storylines.
The critics have criticized it. I think it's great. I thought it was way better.
I do too. I love the Cassie in love with Nate storyline where she's just like nuts about
I
him and
agree.
stuff.
I
It's just
agree.
like-
I thought it was great.
it was like crushing her soul, you know, that he was like playing kind of, you know, second hand with her.
Right.
Here is the third clip. Oops, wrong button. This is shot off of Dan's TV screen. Get some audio here.
Answer me! He's down!
I was in the hall.
Powerful stuff, man.
Ash!
Oops.
Ash!
It was good, man. It was so good. Like, and I had just sat there. Like I said, I was going to watch the show on Showtime that you were telling me about at the same time. You know, the one with about Uber, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to watch it right after this. But it took me an hour to get over that. I watched it ultimately, but I bet I didn't start it for almost 90 minutes after that. Because I just sat there I mean, whatever their impact, the goal was for them to elicit a reaction from the audience. They succeeded massively with me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like deflated.
Yeah.
It was so good. Like, to me, that's an Emmy Award winning scene.
Well, it was funny because you texted me right afterwards, and it sounded like you were emotionally taken by that scene. So
yeah, man. And just like if you watch the other two videos preceding it, just the buildup where he's begging him, like, to why are you doing this shit, man? Like, this is the fucking police.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, stop, you know, and obviously he wouldn't. So it's just, man, it was amazing. It's too bad it went that way. But obviously it was good for the show in terms of drama, though.
Yep. Bear Truth 9 wants to know if you, Dan, have watched Nightcrawler yet. He has recommended it a couple times on previous shows. It's the Jake Gyllenhaal movie, 2014-15. Have you seen it, Dan?
What God, I don't remember this recommendation. I apologize. What's Gyllenhaal doing in it again?
Photographs, video photographs, car crashes, I think.
No, I didn't see it. What platform is it on?
I think it's on Showtime. Is that the one Nightcrawler where he's no
he
Nightcrawler
sells like crime scene pictures to news agencies, doesn't he? Like
it's a Louis Bloom, a con man desperate for work, muscles into the world of LA crime journalism. He blurs the line between observer and participant to become the star of his own story.
I need to check it out then. I mean, I don't want to like have anyone think that I'm above their recommendations. Like again, if it's on a platform that I can easily access, then I should watch it.
Yeah, let's see if it says on IMDb where it's playing. Prime Video, Amazon Prime Video.
I've got that. So I'll try to watch it this week then.
Yeah, and I got one. I saw The Guilty with Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't know if you guys have seen that. He plays and Dan, this should interest you. He plays a cop who has had some issues and has,
the 911 thing. I saw this.
Oh, okay. So what'd you think of that? And quickly tell people what the plot is, so that way you're not giving an opinion.
He's being punished and he's been taken off the street, and so he can justify still getting paid. They make him essentially answer 911 calls for them. But as much as it was gritty and so much better than that bullshit movie that Halle Berry did about 911. The things that he was doing were unrealistic, though. Like, he couldn't just sit there and argue and cuss customers or callers. You can't. I mean, you'd be fired. I don't give a fuck if you are a policeman. You're on a recorded line, and all of those tapes can be used in court.
Right.
All of them are subject to being played in court. You couldn't be just sitting there because I don't like you. Like, if you're a dick to me, you're calling in and I don't like you. I can't just be like, Mr. Gandia, go fuck yourself. I can't do that. That's my job, is to not do that and to try to de-escalate the situation. And his character just randomly cuts these promos on people, and it's not realistic in that regard.
I didn't think it was at all. My wife and I watched it together, and we said, wow, so much of this is implausible, but it does pack an emotional punch, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was an enjoyable movie, and the fact I heard him on Stern talking about it a while ago. I think it was when I was going to Pittsburgh for the Bear game. They shot that movie on an iPhone in 11 days.
Oh, yeah.
It was during the pandemic, so it only took them less than 2 weeks to do it on a fucking iPhone, which is incredible.
Yeah, because they never left that room, or actually, it was in 2 rooms. It was the 911 room, and then he goes into a separate room about 45 minutes into the movie. And
he's throwing all these tantrums and shit that he would not be allowed to do.
Yes, he was definitely suffering from psychological issues because he did something wrong and was afraid because of the following day. Here's another implausible thing. It's 2 a.m. in the morning. He's working at 911, and the following day he's got a court hearing to determine his future because of the case that he's involved in. I think it's highly unlikely they would do that. Yeah, we know you got a really intense day tomorrow, but we need you to work 911 all the way past 2 a.m., Jake.
It was implausible. Unfortunately, I got to go, and at some point, maybe next week, we can get into the Cosby talk and maybe that Uber one too.
Yes, I demand everyone who's a fan of this show to watch. What's the name of the Uber one? It's called
Super Pumped.
Super Pumped. Story of Uber with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and some other good stars. I thought excellent season premiere. Episode 1 is in the banks. By the time next week, we can talk about the 2 episodes, and then we keep talking about Cosby. We will definitely talk about Cosby next week.
And Sunday night next week, the Lakers show starts on HBO.
Yes, baby.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Which is going to be really fun.
Yeah, it's getting good reviews already from people who have seen it. Can't wait to see that. Hey, I'm going to pull the plug on this episode. I got a lot to do yet tonight. So
I got to go anyway. So you all be well.
All right, you get out of here, Dan.
All right, Dan.
Tooch and I will turn off the lights here at the bar room. Take care, Dan.
Bye-bye.
Tooch, anything
I'm not touching that. I'm not touching Dan's light. I don't know what kind of things I'm going to get off of that light bulb.
Tooch, anything you want to promote before we get out of here?
Follow me on Twitter at John Santucci VIP, and you can get if you retweet my free play post and follow me on Twitter, you get a free play. Tonight my free play was the under in the Air Force San Jose State game, under 126. I think they scored only 99 points.
Oh,
so 102 points, something like that. Well, how many points are there? Hold on a second. They scored 112 points tonight. So
wow.
I sent you 2 winners too recently, Aldo.
Yes, you
Brian
did.
and
Thank you
Murray
for that.
State. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can get free play if you retweet my free play post.
And tell them about your podcast. You've been having some great guests and excellent shows.
Yep, it's called Maximum Edge Sports Wagering Show on YouTube and Twitter, and we actually get more interaction on Twitter. You know, YouTube's very hard to break into. You know, like all Barroom's a success story. You know, for YouTube, it's hard to break in on YouTube, and at this point in time, you know, Twitter is a lot more people just looking for quick gambling tips. So our shows are short, anywhere from like 5, 15, 25 minutes long. We have some good guests. I think Thursday I've got Matt Peralt from the Daily Juice Betting Pros.
Nice.
Friday, Sean Higgs from Picks and Parlays and Winning Picks. He usually joins us on Fridays to talk about Saturday's college basketball. Like I said, we had a game day OJ, the Houston sports reporter from Houston. That was Tuesday. She is very easy on the eyes, Aldo.
I like that. I've got old eyes. I need
to go back and very easy to look at. Very beautiful girl. And we had Chris Thurston on. He's a Baylor alum. We were talking about the Baylor Bears game last night against the Longhorns. We gave away a free play. Baylor -1 in that game. They won out. They won. Covered the spread. That was a good free pick. Chris gave out Kansas State plus the points last night against Texas Tech. That was another winner. So you know it's fun doing the wagering show, and send out free plays every day. I got a lot of fun interaction. You know, after a play wins, you know, they're always like, "Thank you so much." You know, I needed a win. You know, so
that's a great feeling, isn't it?
Rewarding, yeah, definitely.
When you put money in somebody's pocket, that is great. Great job
tonight, Aldo. My $10 bet. I just do these ones for fun. You know, like I think it was like 12-leg parlay on DraftKings. $10. I won $495 tonight.
Whoa, baby! Drinks on the tooth.
Yep. So just occasionally those lottery tickets will hit. You know, like Anthony and I, we were giving away these lottery ticket parlays on Saturdays. My partner on Maximum Edge. So Saturday mornings would give away a big parlay, like $5. You can win 500. So we'll give that away on our show on Saturday mornings. And watching I got back into Euphoria because Dan was like, Dan chided me by text.
Yeah, you've been chiding me too.
Why aren't you watching Euphoria season 2, Tooch?
You told me I want to talk about the ending. I go, well, why are you going to give away the ending?
I'm fine with
and
it.
He goes, it'll force you to watch it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm really getting into these storylines and stuff, man. It's high drama. You know, it's you have to suspend belief, thinking that these kids are in high school still because they're all like in their 20s.
Yeah.
But some of the characters, the backstories are so well fleshed out, man. You get Cal's backstory, you get Fezco and Ashtray's backstory. They were just great. Those are like the first few episodes. You know, you got the couple of great backstories. You know, Cal's backstory was great, man.
What's the name of the lead actress? She's become
Zendaya.
Yeah, Zendaya. She's become famous.
Yeah, she is very pretty. She's getting better looking as the older she gets. You know,
she's dating Tom Holland, the Superman.
Okay,
right?
Oh, okay. Tom Holland, Spider-Man. Yeah,
Spider-Man. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. And Cal's Nate's dad. You know, perverted building contracting owner company. You know, the home building company owner, you know, but you get his backstory, man. It's great. His backstory was like, you know, find out why he's kind of got the issues he has, you know. And I'm like 4 episodes in. I wish I had gotten to the point so I could have discussed the ending with Dan, but There's lots of foreshadowing of Fezco and Ash in this whole episode, man. I mean, it's like there's some scenes where you're just like, these guys are going to get capped sooner or later because they're just not, they're just playing with the wrong people and the whole time. So, but yeah. PJ says they're co-stars in Spider-Man. Yeah, are they dating? They're dating in real life, though, right?
Mm-hmm. They are dating in real life, and yes, PJ is absolutely right. They did co-star in Spider-Man. I read somewhere that her role in Spider-Man was like really minuscule.
Yeah.
But they established a really intense relationship, and they are often photographed together with public displays of emotion.
One thing that's great about Euphoria is the soundtrack, man. I don't know how many times I got Shazam open the whole time I'm watching Euphoria. I'm like, man, pick out some great songs from that show. They really do a great job with the soundtrack. All sorts of artists from Lana Del Rey to Jerry Rafferty to Oliver Peck. I mean, just some obscure artists. You're like, wow, that's a really great song. And a lot of these songs fit great contextually within the storyline. So yeah, it's
I love
really
it.
Great. Yeah.
And Factor, I promise you, I'm going to watch Making a Murderer
I haven't seen
on Netflix. My wife saw it. She goes, "Yeah."
So did my wife. That's what I was going to say. Aldo and our wives have seen it. Factor. Does that count?
I give my wife a hard time sometimes because she'll start watching stuff without me. I'm like,
yeah, mine too.
You start watching this without me.
Yeah.
Because you know how much I love murder shows, and I go, yeah. Okay, I'm not going to bother you.
Yeah. I'm the same way. That's what she likes too. I hope our wives aren't plotting anything, Aldo.
I'm telling you, man. If I wake up with a knife in my head,
we won't be waking up.
Yeah, that's right. If I'm found murdered somewhere, the main suspect is my beautiful wife
or mine.
Good stuff, my friend. That is it for our show tonight. Make sure you follow John Santucci on the Twitter machine. It is at John Santucci VIP. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. That way you get a text message informing you of whenever we are live. And if you like listening to stuff on audio podcasts, just search for Barroom Network. You'll find us on iTunes, Spotify, all of the major podcast delivery stations. We've got lots of cool stuff planned for this month with the NFL free agency leading all the way up to the draft. We are going to be covering the draft left and right in that week of the draft. Oh my goodness, we're going to have tons of stuff. Tooch will be a part of it, and lots of other people will be a part of it too. So it's going to be a blast. And we got a couple new things that we're trying to work out here, trying to come to agreement with some people. So if that happens, you people here will be the second to know. I got to let the staff know first. So everything's looking good, and it's only looking good because all of you people join us and make this a lot of fun and worth all of the effort that we put into it. So for Johnny Santucci, Dan Aguirre, I am Aldo Gandia. Good night, everybody.